Next up, let's make sure we get up and running with our glorious module and we can become kernel developers. Are you ready for that? I certainly am. So look at this, back on our glorious command line, and we're just about to become kernel developers. That is so exciting. So let's make sure we get started on the right foot. And that's by organizing our files into a central directory for our source code management. So I'm going to go through and create myself a directory for my module. So I'm using sudo and mkdir -p in case I need to create any of the parent directories, but they should be in place. USR for Unix system resources, SRC for source for our source code, and then we're going to call our module something really descriptive, custom module. We can put the version number on, so -1.0, and this is going to be our directory name. Let's move into that, but don't forget to use escape and dot to recall your last argument. Escape followed by the dot. So now we're in the directory, we can copy across the files that are in the courseware downloads. I've already done that, and you can see the 3 files. But do make sure of the case of the make file, the uppercase M. Let's begin by taking a look at our C source file. So if I cat this out, we don't really need to go through too much of the detail, but note that we have 2 functions. The function for the initialization and the exit. These are going to produce messages. Next up, we can go through and take a look at the DKMS configuration, the configuration of DKMS for this module. So we've got our package name and we've got instructions such as clean and make, telling us to use the make command, which will use the make file. So we must also take a look at the make file. Remember, that's got the uppercase M. First up, we make reference to our object file, the compiled source code. Then we've got 2 instructions for make. We've got make all and make clean and the associated commands. So this then is the make file. We're now ready to run through and start adding in our module so it can be managed by DKMS. So we can begin with sudo DKMS and the subcommand add. So let's add in the option -m so we can point through to our module. And then, of course, we need to put in the module name. So custom module. Bit of an awkward name to type with a double M in the middle. And then the version that we're working with, 1.0. With that done, the next step then is to go through the build process. The build process is going to execute the make file. So compile the code. Once we've compiled the code, we need to go through and install it into the correct location. So we can go through and run DKMS install. So we've now put it in our correct location. And we should be ready to run with our module now. The module won't be loaded. So the first step that we can really do with this is to go through and run our sudo modprobe and custom module. And of course now, if we go through and run our lsmod command, we're going to be able to see that it is loaded. So if I go through and grep, and I can use escape and dot to bring up custom module. So it is loaded. We're going to unload it. So of course it won't be loaded now. But we can actually go through and use journalctl to read from our logs. We want to read from the kernel log, so -k, and we can go through and specify the number of lines we want to see are going to be 2. That should be enough, but we can put a larger number in if you want. But we can see the message that was generated by our module as it was loaded and unloaded. The double underscore init and the double underscore exit functions. We can double check that it is being managed by DKMS by looking at its status, and it's installed for DKMS management. And we can also go through and check what would happen if the kernel was updated. We could go through and do a DKMS auto install, and we can see that we're not getting any errors coming back from that. So it looks like it is up and running to be recompiled when a new kernel is added.